thanks for tuning in. Jed's here, and we appreciate you joining us for this little midway commentary of the BSA Starfire 250 rebuild project. I brought Simon in so that we could discuss progress as is. It's still not complete yet, so we figured we'd do a talking conversation because I watched this guy as he builds his bike, and I'm the one editing it, and I just wanted to have him on to have a conversation about first off, why we're here, why he's decided to clean out a silicone filter basically that looks like a motorcycle engine, and like where we're at with it and where we're going with it. So Simon,
cool. Let's see. So why are we here? Why have I got a BSA? There's two reasons. The first ever motorcycle I ever got was a BSA C15, which is the model before this. That I want to say I was like 14 or 15 years old. And my dad had bikes when he was a kid. He didn't have a bike when I was growing up. And motorcycles were taboo. They weren't something that, they were very dangerous. And being an only child, I kind of maybe was a little bit, my parents could have been a little bit too protective. But somehow, some way, underage drinking with my dad at the pub on a Sunday, I convinced him, yeah, that's probably how it happened. Probably convinced him that, hey, why don't we get an old British bike together? Between us, that means you pay for it, Dad. You fix it, and then I'll ride it.
Right.
And we ended up with a BSA C15, which I think was a 63, which was the year I was born. So I had a lot of fun building that and riding it, and it brings me a lot of good memories. And then, shameless plug for the New England Triumph Owners Group. You can find us under TOMCC.org and join, and then select our branch, New England. We're active in all 7 states of New England. And you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, there's only 6 states. And you're right. It's because we've taken over New York as well.
That's right.
Anyway, so I came up with the idea for this $1,000 bike challenge, which isn't actually mine. Although I'm taking all the credit for it. There was a thing on YouTube 6-7 years ago called the Dirt Bag. I think it was the Dirt Bag Rally. It happens out in San Francisco, and people had $1,500 to buy a motorcycle and then customize what could be ridden into some god-awful looking piece of there with moped front wheels, or put a trike back end on the end of a CM 250 Rebel, just insane ridiculousness, and then get it sort of legal and ride it somewhere. So I that's been banging around in the back of my mind. And then also got this hankering for our group that I wanted to organize a reliability trial. I read a lot of old motorcycle magazines from the UK, and reliability trials are the thing for old bikes. You got to do a bit of navigation, be somewhere in a certain time. And during one of our evening chats on video, we kind of came up with this idea collectively. And, let's get a bike for $1,000 and do it up and spend $500 getting it legal, and then ride it a ridiculous distance, all away from the safety of workshops and stuff, and just try and remember what it was like when you were 17 or 16 or however it was, when you earned $30 a week, and you didn't have anything for parts. You just kind of made do. So that's how I ended up. Well, that's how I ended up looking for a bike. And then one of our guys bought said BSA, rode it about 30 miles, and it seized up on him, and he got frustrated with it, and I think he saw it as a money pit, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and said the right things, and I foolishly bought it. Let's go with that. And what's more interesting is I convinced Bob to drive all the way to Albany to pick it up and come back for a beef burger and a tank of gas. So thanks, Bob. So that's how I ended up with it.
Oh man, that's so funny. And that's the thing. So I guess we'll fill in. I too, a TOMCC New England member. we decided to do this, and we decided to do it with small displacement motorcycles, so nothing
Right.
larger than 500 cc's. So, and the budget is $1,000 to purchase, and then $500 grace for parts, tires, things like that. I don't know. I think we're going to give you the good graces because it's a BSA. It's an actual British bike going into a British-based club event. So, but I think you might be over 500, Simon.
You think? As organizer, I can't win anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I can't win the grand prize. So yeah, as you said, there's I think there's 9 of us in it so far.
Mm-hmm.
We got a couple of BSAs, a Triumph 250, which is the same bike really, and then everything else is a Honda apart from one Motor Guzzi. So it's a good mixture of bikes. There's a points system where there's points awarded for Britishness, points deducted for being too Japanese for the bike brand. Yep. You get points for having a smaller bike. If you have a 500, you kind of lose out. You get points for having an older bike rather than newer bike, and the least amount of money you spend is good. So you start with 150 points, and then points are deducted and added based on Britishness, age, country of origin, spend, and all that kind of thing. So you're starting with a bike you got for free.
Right.
So I think you're at a distinct advantage.
Right. I'm gonna get knacked for the 500 cc's and the Honda part of it, but I don't know how much.
I think you're going to win. You're going to win by not spending enough money.
That'd be a nice thing.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think you should get it on the road for. If you can borrow everything or CAD, steel, beg, get all the stuff you need to get it legal for nothing. I think there should be a prize for that.
Yeah, I'm going to see what I can figure out. But yeah, we're here talking about your 250.
We are. We're talking about my 250. So what do you want to know?
I find it amazing that bike made it like 20 miles down the road. When you said that the previous owner rode it, I don't know how. Like,
yeah, I don't. I'm kind of bemused by the whole thing actually, because that's the sludge filter thing was, and you don't really see it in the video, but the whole screen was covered in silicon fragments, and it really is I am restoring a silicon dump that has some motorcycle parts in it. I think that's the best way to put it. Anything that could be held together with gasket goo, it's got gasket goo, and it's not just a little. It's a lot. There's tons of it everywhere, on every bloody surface. It's all over the place. I mean, if I may use a real live example, I'm just going to stand off for a second.
Sure.
Purely because I have it to hand. But here is, as an example, the inner gearbox housing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's got a face around the outside, and then a sort of face down here that should have sealant on it, but there's also a face along there, and then some other stuff here. It was smothered. It was smothered on everything, and there's I don't know when you see, there's a little hole there. We should have an O-ring in it, which is the high pressure oil feed to the big end bearing. This is where I think it will start to go wrong, and it was smothered in gasket sealant.
No O-ring.
And what's really interesting is you read the restoration book, there shouldn't be any gasket sealant on that web at all. You just leave it. You just put the O-ring in, seal it around the outside, and just that piece down the middle, and that's it. And this isn't even the original case. I had to buy a new case. $22, thank you. BSA Singles of Jaffrey, New Hampshire. And because the one that was on there was so chewed and levered and covered in goo, and it was I mean, and I'm not saying it's the guy before, but you know, these bikes are over 50 years old, so
who knows,
you know, the maintenance of them, they've suffered many a tribulation or an abuser.
So that 250 was a pretty powerful little bike for its age.
Yeah, it was. It made 26 horsepower, which
that's crazy.
Yeah, but they did it by really aggressive cam profiles, really high compression, and
Hmm.
to hell with reliability.
Oh, really? It was
Oh
really
yeah,
just like,
it's
we're gonna
it's
sell
tuned.
grenades.
Yeah. So the model before, same size, quite the same thing, made 15, which is more in keeping with what BSA did. But
Really?
as the 250 learner law came in the UK, so
Hmm.
you know if you when you start with a, I guess it's a permit here. In the UK, we call it a learn. You have a learn provisional license, is what we call it. You have to ride with a thing called an L plate, which is a white plate about 9 by 9 with a red L on it, front and back, to show that you're a learner, so everybody knows
Hmm.
to stand well back. You can only ride up to a 250, and the BSA B25 Starfire was one of the most powerful 250s available. You've got to wring its neck to get there. So it's got to
Really?
do like 6.5, 7,000 RPM, which is just, I can't ride it. My 900 Tiger, I don't rev that much.
Right. Right.
I take that to 4.5. I'm like, wow, I'm really caning this. It's just not in my nature.
Right.
So
I'm sure it's nice. It's not buttery smooth or anything like that.
no, there's no rubber mounting on it either. So at least on the T140 in the picture behind me, the handlebars are rubber mounted and it's got really thick rubber footrest. The BSA hasn't got any of that.
Oh, nice. That
Yeah, it's
that
going to be vibration city. Any
yeah.
bad feelings that I may have will come out on the first day's ride. I'm have to ride with like a football
Yeah.
mouth
One of
guard
those
in.
mouth guards in. Oh.
Yeah, yeah. So if you see me smiling, we're going, that'll be why.
Oh man. Oh man.
Good times, good times.
So what has been the most expensive thing to fix so far?
Well, I'm still putting the engine together. So I guess
So you don't know
yeah.
yet.
So that's it. It's sitting down here next to me. Um,
Hmm.
so I guess the most expensive thing was that fancy forged steel comrod, and I spent a lot of time. I haven't got the old one here, but that was a what the issue with the thing was that we got a comment on the first video about it being I could have some movement,
Yeah.
and that side to side movement is okay, and that's true. But what we had was this.
Yeah, you had like a rock.
It
Yeah.
rocked.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, if it was that lateral, that was good, but it was like this. Um, so it had to come off. And then when I bought the new bearings and torqued it down correctly onto the crank, to the big end journal, it was really stiff. So there was something, that rod wasn't quite right because the shells didn't go in there.
Hmm.
Super nice. And I did lube them up, and you go, well, it's got to be the right one. So talking to I've actually had a conversation with Mr. Rupert Ratio, the guy that wrote the books. My wife got me the books for Christmas, and she wanted to make sure that we got them for Christmas. So she wrote a note on the web page, and his wife wrote back and said, "Oh yeah, we'll get them to you for your husband for Christmas." Blah blah blah. Oh, and if he has any questions, you can talk to David because the guy's name's David. So I wrote him a note after Christmas, told him that this is probably the best investment I've ever done on something, and we've had a couple of emails backwards and forwards, and he's full of great. I mean, he's really helpful.
Hmm.
So on that chain case where I showed you where the gasket goo should go, I said, I think I should only do this. And he came back and said, yeah, that's right. If you smear it everywhere, it just gums up the oil lines with gasket fragments. And I just wrote back, well, funny enough. So that's that. So the biggest expense I think has been that comrod.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that.
That's honestly that was half the budget.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, it's
No,
going to be
that.
worth it. It's going to be a great
Yep.
bike when it's done.
Hmm. And that's going to increase the reliability on the long runs
Yeah.
with it.
No stretch. And the standard rod is aluminum top half, and the bottom cap is steel.
Yep.
So it also wasn't torqued up correctly.
Hmm.
Literally, it came off really. There was no the torque settings it hadn't been torqued up. Um, but they suffer with stretch. and they fracture, which I do believe this engine has had a fracture. There's some crankcase damage which has been repaired well, actually, which was pretty cool. I keep looking down because it's down here. I know you can't see it. Yeah, it's suffered in a previous life. I'm doing my best to bring it back to life.
Great. Now, so are you using the stock piston too?
It's a stock piston. Well, it's a modern remake. 20 over on the bore. It's standard compression ratio. It's the
piston did a number on the cylinder. Did the piston do a number on the cylinder?
But it's weird. It was at the bottom, which is why I keep going on about the oiling and the oil spray in video 2 or 3. So there was seizure marks or bind marks on the bottom. The top of the piston was great, and the top of the bore was great. It's just right at the bottom. And it was odd. You know, you've got the crank pin going like that, and you expect to get wear front and back, but it was twisted. So because the conrod's not right, the thing I think is twisting, and that's where it got the wear. And on that conrod, there's no way for the oil to spray up. So on the first bike, there's a hole in the shell and two drilling, so the oil sprays up the side. And then they modified it because that weakened the rod, and they scalloped out the sides of the rod. And also, the oil only got to the top when the oil journal hole, because there's a hole in the big end. So when the holes line up was the only place it squirted oil. So to give it more oil all the time, they cut little scallops out in the top of the conrod, so it sprays out the side the whole time it's going round. So that's what the modern the forged steel rod that I got. I keep saying Carrillo, it isn't. I got it from MAP Motorcycles Parts in Florida, who are a good Triumph, BSA, you name it. I've everything I bought from them has been good. I haven't bought a bad part from them. Touch wood.
Now, did you say that conrod rod could be used in like a Triumph?
Interestingly enough, it's the same size as the 500 Daytona. So a lot of people, because they couldn't get the BSA one, put the 500 Daytona rod in. And what I understand, rightly or wrongly, I've never rebuilt a Daytona engine, and this actually makes no sense to me. But more than one person, in fact 2, has told me that the Daytona on the timing side, I think it's the timing side, which has the plane, has the plane bearing, has the spray drilling, and on the drive side it doesn't, which makes it seems ridiculous. But anyway, the one you want is the one with the cross drilling. I've obviously got in that bike the other rod, so it had no cross drilling. So I'm attributing the wrong rod, the fuller gunge screen, the silicon over the oil passage hole in the inner case, and the knackered oil pump to the bike's ultimate demise.
Right.
Within 30 miles, which is quite impressive that it got that far.
I was going to say,
you said.
Yeah, and it didn't blow up or just to completely lock up.
Yeah, it could have been much, much worse, which was what I thought I was going to get into. But
and the top end looks fine, right?
Yeah, the cylinder head looks really good. We've not seen that yet because we haven't got that far. The barrel looks good. The piston was scuffed up a bit. I did dress there was a little bit of pickup at the bottom of the barrel, which I could have had it professionally honed. But I'm a big fan of Scotch-Brite pads, so I just thought I'll just get a Scotch-Brite pad on it and just do that, and it cleaned right up. And I'm like, there's no point in giving this to somebody to hone professionally and spend $100 when I could just take the all I want to do is get rid of the light touch marks, and it's aluminum on steel, so the piston's the thing that suffered.
Right.
The cast iron liner's good, although it's thin, so I think it's a steel liner.
Oh, so it's like
it's an aluminum
block.
with a liner in it.
Yeah.
I mean, for the 60s, it's really up there. It's really up there in technology. Technology is really good. The metallurgy, it's got a long way to go to catch up with today's standards. And the machining, of course, was not quite as good. But at least BSA, I think, invested a little bit in their machine tools, whereas Triumph, when they built Meriden, put new tools in, and that they stayed all the way up until they closed in the 80s.
Right. Yeah. Didn't you your T140? What year is your T140?
1976.
1976. And now that technology is like from the 40s, right? That they used?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the Speed Twin was designed in 37, I think.
Oh my Lord.
So there's not much has changed. My T140 is a bit special. It's got it's 800cc, so it's got an overboard kit on it. It's got roller bearing both sides on the instead of a roller and a ball, and it's got a fully floating crank. It should have the cast rods in it. It hasn't. I really should do that. It's got forward port case scavenging, which is something the factory did in the race bikes, where they vent out the front through a stainless steel pan scrubber, and it loops back to the back of the bike, and there's a vacuum valve. So when the pistons come down and force the air out, the valve's open, and then when it comes down and creates a vacuum, the valve shuts, and it's supposed to stop oil leaks. And it does a really good job. And the only oil leak I've got is where the gearbox shaft comes through the case, which is it's a really crap design. BSA is exactly the same. And there's an oil seal that wears, and then gearbox oil drips out and lubricates your chain. So it's not that bad.
Right.
So I have that little drip. Oil. Yeah, that little drip. I get that. So it drips, a couple of drips over a month. But it's it's the same. It's and this BSA engine is derived from the Triumph Tiger Cub, which was Edward Turner. Again, Triumph started with a 150 Terrier, which was a little piss pot commuter bike, became the Tiger Cub, and then BSA bought that or inherited that design when they bought Triumph and created the C15, brought the cylinder upright, and then developed it further, which is the B25. And then that basically became the B44 and then the B50. And then when BSA finished and Alan Clues took over and created CCM, the crazy motocross machines, they went up to a 580. And it's basically that. It's all from the Tiger Cub.
Really?
The whole lineage, yeah. Huh. It's pretty cool. Look at me. I'm such a sad old wanker that I know that.
No, it's interesting. I don't know any of this stuff, so I find it interesting. So
when I was a lad, I went to Hawkstone Park, which is a big motocross place in the UK, and saw Jeff Smith ride a 580 CCM, and it was so loud the ground shook.
Really?
And I was 15, and at 15 it frightened me.
So it was a 580 single based on that little motor.
Based on an extension of that motor. It's basically the bottom end's really close to being the same. There's an extra bearing on the drive side. I mean, that's how can we make this stronger? We'll put a second bearing in. Genius!
Yeah. Run it!
I say, old chap, brilliant idea. Brilliant,
man. And and there's not much to those bikes. They're tiny, anyways. That's kind of that's kind of ludicrous.
Yeah, there's not much to it. That's for sure.
That's crazy. So what other I know you're upgrading the ignition and charging system on it, right? So I think the thing to take from your build so far is that you're not doing a restore. You're definitely doing more of I'm making this old bike reliable to run every day.
Yeah. And so I'm doing what I did with the T140, which is it's a Triumph, or it's going to be a BSA, it's going to be a B25. It will have electronic ignition on it. It will have a modern electronic voltage regulator. Thank you, Podtronics. It will have LED light bulbs as well. So I've got LED light bulbs for it. I will put an AGM one of those gel batteries in it.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly smaller. I'll put an external oil filter on it, so which they didn't have. The old bikes don't have oil filters. They have screens, and they have a thing called a sludge trap where the oil spins and throws the solids out. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
in video 2 you saw, or maybe it was 3, you saw me pull out the sludge trap plug,
Yep.
and it was fairly clean, which I was amazed at.
Yeah.
So oil is critical for these things, and oil pressure.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing a sympathetic oily rag restoration just to get it running, and it will be the bike that I would build if I was the bike I wanted to build when I was 15. So I like dirt bikes, so it'll have a high pipe on it. The low pipe will disappear.
Mm-hmm.
I bought recently off eBay a used B44 scrambler pipe, so it's got they do make them now, but they don't have the constant curves. It's like curve straight, curve straight, curve straight, and it doesn't look nice. The BSA ones are just there's not a piece of straight in the bend of the pipe. They're quite beautiful, and it's not got rust on it. The chrome's a bit dull and scratched, so it's in keeping with the bike, so it'll look great.
Right. Yep.
The silencer, it's got a little silencer about that long. It's got 0 baffles in it, and it's got a hole in the bottom, so it needs a bit of welding.
Yeah.
But it'll be as true to a scrambler style bike as I can get. I've got the original gas tank was fiberglass. BSA went through a phase of making tanks out of fiberglass, which at the time was great, and now we've got ethanol fuels. It just dissolves them.
Yeah.
So you can't use it, and it's been repaired or tried to be repaired by the guy that the mechanic of the guy that I bought it from. So empty, it weighs more than a gas tank full of gas weighs. So I bought a steel one for a slightly later unit. It's in orange, which was a factory color. It's faded. I think it appears in the videos in the background. It's got a couple of dings in it, just not too much, just a slight crease here and there. It's got patina, which is great. So I'm going to put that gas tank on it because it's made out of steel. It's also slightly bigger, so it's got a bigger capacity.
Oh, nice.
So I think they're really frugal. They reckon they do like 60 miles to the gallon.
Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I can't, maybe even more. I read it and thought that can't be right. I'm trying to think what mine was like. I'm pretty sure mine I could ride all week on a tank of gas and not worry about it and go out at the weekend. So, that was the old C15. So this should be similar, I think. So that's good. And now, like we were saying earlier on, the thing I've just done is make sure that the gearbox, the main shaft and the lay shaft, I took it apart. There were no shims in it, so there should be shims between the gears. There was nothing. There was none. So I bought shims, put those in. It's amazing now how everything just fits perfect. Because I put the lay shaft gears in, and they're like that much. Well, it's not that much, but there was like a good quarter of an inch lower than where the shipping. I'm like, that's not right. And then so I start reading the books, and I'm like, oh, there's all these shims that should be in there.
They're not in there.
They're not in there.
How did this thing make it down the road, man?
I'm quite impressed that it was able to change gear, and I think because the selector forks hold the gears in place, right. It's good. But with the undercut gears, they pull themselves together, right? And then the shim takes a bit of the load. But without them, it's just in there, and it puts all this stress on things. So I did shim it. I've got it on my GoPro, ready for episode 5. Me checking the shimming of the gearbox. So I'll do a dry run hopefully this week, and then this weekend, with a bit of luck, I'll put the gear case on and tighten it all up, and then it's like big steps from then.
Yep.
Which will be exciting to get the primary back on. The clutch hopefully won't jump off to meet me like it did when I took it apart.
You're like,
yeah, that came off real easy.
Finger tight. I guess that's the torque spec.
Yeah, it was a good time. It's been a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying this. I'm enjoying this so much more than building the T140. And I
Really?
really, really wanted to build that bike, and
Yeah.
I did, but I didn't. I was desperate to ride it,
So you're
and
just like,
you might, yeah, come on, I got it. Oh, it's not quite right. It will do. And then I developed
that's
it as I
smoking on
rode
red,
it,
right?
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I learned a big lesson on that, because when I got that, I thought the bottom end was solid, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
been told, hey, the bottom end's been rebuilt. And it hadn't. And I rode it for a year, and then it started like making this weird noise. And I
Mm-hmm.
phoned up an engine builder guy who came really highly rated, because I don't have the ability to do machine shop work or anything. Um, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll rebuild it for you." And it sounds like the following. And while we're in there, maybe we want to do all these cool things. So that's how I started off with the roller bearing conversion and the
Mm-hmm.
forward porting and all that kind of stuff. But it's the Lucy, as I call it, is a terrific bike,
Yeah.
and I have no idea what I'm going to call the BSA. Betsy is too obvious.
Right. I
Yeah.
don't know. You're gonna have to like put it together and write it and then think of a name.
Then think of a name. Yeah, and it won't be shitbox. Ah, shitbox, the BSA.
Unless it is a shit box, and then
No, it
maybe it
can't
would
be.
be
It
Dave.
can't be.
Yeah.
It can't be. If it
No.
is, I'm never going to own up to it. No one's
Right.
ever going to know.
I mean, we're video edit, like we're capturing this in video and posting it on the internet. So there's
Yeah.
no way you can get out of this one, Simon.
No,
No
no.
way.
There's no way. There's no way. I'll hold up parts of it and see whether it should be. Should be the shitbox.
Yeah.
What else?
No,
What else can I tell you?
so I guess let's talk about the challenges because for this 1,000 mile or $1,000 bike challenge, like there's challenges, and I'm interested to hear how the BSA is going to fare in those challenges, because part of it is like we have to all like convene, right? Like
Yeah,
there's like we've got these bikes, you know,
we have
whatever
to.
condition they're in, and we've got to ride them all the way to the campground.
Yep.
And I think it's pretty comparable. Like I've got a pretty sizable hike from where I'm at, and I'm pretty far north in Vermont, but it's
Yeah.
southern Vermont. So like we all got to convene, and then I guess kind of walk us through like what the expectations of the bike's performance need to be.
Okay. So day one is get there. You're absolutely right. It's got to be a minimum of 150 miles. So when we all start, we're going to take a picture of our speedos, our milometers, just in case
Yeah.
someone's wearing, here's a picture of me and my speedos. That isn't what I mean. I want to see your milometer, your trip,
Bob.
whatever. Start, and then you're going to do 150 miles. Because I know there are two guys that are trailering potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to them, I don't mind you trailering, but on day one, if you want to be part of the prize, you've got to do 150 miles on that day. You can't do it the
Yep.
weekend before, can't do it the weekend after. You've got to do it on
Correct.
that day.
Yep. Great
Um,
rule exception.
Absolutely. No, once we start this thing, there's no exceptions. Even for me, if I break down just because I'm organizing it, but I can't win anyway.
Right.
So we just get there carrying our camping gear as well, hence the rack fabrication in episode 3. So we get our camping gear, set everything up, and then the Saturday is the reliability trial, which encompasses distance, navigation,
Mm-hmm.
and time.
Right.
So between now and the event, I will go up to Vermont and I'll ride the course, because I know exactly what the course is, and I'll do it on my Tiger to make it interesting.
Yeah.
And set a time, and that'll be the benchmark time. And I won't go crazy. I'll try and keep a moderate speed. I won't break any speed limits, and that's going to be our goal time. And what we're going to then do is people are going to get to the start of the road where the campground is, zero their speedos, and then take a picture, a screenshot of the time, and then they're going to go off. They're going to have a road book, which is kind of Paris-Dakar style, At mile 5, turn left on. At mile 7.5, turn right on. Stay on road to mile 13, turn left. Mile 23, turn right. All that kind of stuff. You don't get the road book until the day of the ride. I'll hand them out at, if we're setting off at 10, I'll hand them out at 9:30, so people can look at them. People can have phones for navigation because there's no waypoints. You won't understand where you're going just looking at the road book.
Yeah.
What you can do is, if you use the map on your phone, you can figure out where you are and how far wrong you are. So you go around, do the whole thing. There's one mandatory stop at a gas station for 10 minutes where you've got to fill up with gas, 10 minutes, then come back. It should, according to Garmin Basecamp, and the loop is 155 miles, it should take 5.25 hours at legal speeds. So we're out there for a while.
Yep.
And then you come back. Take a picture of your the time and your mileometer, and then if you're over or under mileage by a certain amount, if you're late by a certain amount, and I'm not going to tell you what the
goals are,
the goals are. Yeah,
right.
The benchmark. I think you're gonna. I've already said, it's going to be around the 150 mile mark because we're doing 150 miles a day. But the time, you're going to have to figure that out. So if you're early, you lose points. If you're late, you lose points. If you get a breakdown, that's points docked. If you get a puncture, that's points docked. It's all down to the honor system.
Yeah.
And the prize isn't going to be that great anyway. So it's going to be either a $25 or a $50 Revzilla gift card, something like that.
A vial full of silicone fragments?
Absolutely. A tube of instant gasket to the winner. Actually, that's a great prize. Yeah, good thinking. And maybe one of these wonderful New England Triumph Owners Club T-shirts with the logo on the back that you can't really see because it's Zoom. Anyway, yeah. So we'll do that, and then that's not the end of it, because Saturday, because there's an entrance fee as well. Everybody's paying $25, which we will pool and then put on the discount of what we'll pay towards whatever we have for dinner for the entrance. So you kind of get your money back anyway. And then the ride home. So Sunday, pack up tents, you've got to get home as well. So breakdowns, we've got to bring our own tools, we've got to think about punctures, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be like you were when you were 16 or 17, got your first bike and you went off on this massive epic journey that you thought you were riding halfway across the world and did 75 miles to the seaside. And it took, you and your three mates all day to get to the beach because your mopeds or whatever broke down or got too hot, or you ran out of gas or you got lost. It's going to be that. It's going to be all that fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that was my first trip. My first motorcycle was actually a 1988 Yamaha Riva 200 scooter.
Ooh.
Yeah. And we went from Vermont to Maine. I can't remember the place in Maine, near Arcadia, right?
Oh, wow.
Oh, dude, that was bad because we left and it rained. And we're like, oh, we'll just ride through it. But in New England, as you know, the weather moves from Vermont across New Hampshire to all the way through Maine. So we followed that rainstorm for 6 hours. I was with all these cruiser dudes that are like, we do this all the time. They were like, you got to be ahead. Like, we can't, you need someone to break the rain. Because I had like the shield, it's like,
oh, nice.
And I'm just like standing there with my knees to my chest, 70 miles an hour.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then of course, like the belt started slipping and it, start eating oil. And it's going to be great. It's going to be just like that. Let's just hope
it's going to be excellent.
The rain. We'll have to do with the rain. That's why I got a lean to.
Yeah. Well, I got one as well. So that's good. I think Alan and Tammy have one as well. So between us, we have 3 lean-tos. Yep. So we've got place to hang clothes and try and do stuff.
And hide tools and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be good.
Unload the bikes.
It'll be good. Yeah. It'll be a lot of fun.
So you think, are you going to give the BSA a bit of a run? Obviously, we're doing this.
I've got to run it in, and I think what we're going to do. I was talking to the club guys this past Saturday at Bob's Garage Day, a yearly favourite, and we I think we're going to have a kind of like maybe June, maybe July. If people can get together, maybe do kind of like a pre-qualifier, get out and ride.
Try
I
it
know
out.
there's a few of us, we're close together, but you're way up there. Maybe do 50 miles. But I've got
Yeah.
to ride the thing to run it in anyway, because it's going to have so many new bearings and things in it. I've got to go, and I've
Right.
got to retorque the head and all that. So I've got to go through the whole running in procedure.
Is that a push rod engine? Or is it a
Yes. Push rod engine. Yeah, total push rod engine, old school.
yeah?
No overhead cam doohickey
No,
for
no, no,
me. The
no.
cam's in the main engine chest.
Interesting. Okay, I
Yeah.
was wondering about that because I was looking at because your T140 is also the same way, right? It's
Yeah, exactly. And it
push
makes
rod.
me nervous when I get it above 70 miles an
I
hour.
was gonna yeah. You can definitely hear those.
Oh, you can hear them at tick over. There's a lot of noise in old
Push
British
rod.
bikes. Oh, it's everything's rattling.
They're bending and
They're aluminum, so they're aluminum with steel caps for
oh
lightness.
no, really?
Yeah, yeah. The
Oh,
T140 and the
they're nice and
BSA.
flexible then.
Hopefully not. Actually, the BSA is interesting because it doesn't have tappet screws. Like on the rockers, you have the screw
Yep.
and the nut. It
Yep.
has eccentric shafts, so you move the rocker
Oh.
so that the shaft has no screw. It's a cool way of doing it, and then you lock the shaft in place, so you can get rid of all sorts of wear and everything. I've
Interesting.
not.
So how do you adjust that? How do you
Well,
do an
you
adjustment?
you loosen the nuts at the back, and then there's a
Yeah.
slot, and you put the feeler gauge in. You just twist the shaft until it
And
gets
then
to the
lock
right
it
point,
in.
then you lock the nut at the back.
Interesting.
It's
That's pretty
really
cool.
clever.
Yeah.
It's really good. It works really well on a single cylinder. If you've got a twin and how do you? It's a bit awkward.
Right.
Or
Right.
multi-cylinder, but on a single, genius.
Yeah. Yep. Two valve, easy, done.
New valve, yeah, and the valves are quite big on that for a 250. I think the inlet is like an inch and a half. It's big.
Holy smokes! Like
Yeah, it's
really?
yeah, it's big. Yeah, they're big.
That's
Maybe it's an inch
crazy.
and a quarter, but they're big.
That's crazy. Because
I haven't
like
got
the only
the
thing I
spec
could
sheet.
compare it to that I've worked on is my TU 250X. I used to have the Suzuki TU
Right.
250X, and I pulled the head off because I like tried getting power out of that. It's like in my mind, I'm like I used to ride Suzuki's. I have a GS 1000, old
Yeah.
late 70s, early 80s Suzuki's. They're easy to make power out of. So I'm like, oh, air cooled 250. I pulled the head off, and the valves are like the intake valves.
Oh, they're tiny. Yeah.
They're like, I'm like, no wonder you don't rev out because there's no air moving around.
Yeah.
So,
Full valve head though.
not
Oh, and
the
it'd be.
Tux. The Tux is a two.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
So it isn't even twin swirl combustion chamber, to quote the
No,
80s technology.
no. It
See,
was.
I had
It
a
was.
GSX 250, which was 4 valves per cylinder.
Yep.
That thing would do like 95 miles an hour easy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That twin swirl combustion chamber was big deal back then.
It was. Yeah, absolutely.
And even their 8 valve or like their 2 valve, the Hemi heads they had, like on the 1000s.
Yeah, they were
You could
great
do some work and
bikes.
make a lot of power out of those too.
Great bikes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Terrific.
Freaking bananas. But yeah. Anyways, that's my experience with a single 250. Really.
Excellent.
Yeah. They didn't do. They only did that twin swirl combustion on the twins in the States on the 250 and the 350, I think, or 300.
Really?
They
We had it
never put it on
all
a
the way up the range. They must
Yeah.
have done it on the 1100, 750s,
Oh, no,
550s.
I'm sorry. Yeah, they did them. Of course, they
Yeah.
did them on the 1100, 1150, 750.
Yeah.
That was it. They're all chain drive, too.
Yeah.
All those were
Yeah.
chain.
Yeah.
All powerhouses. So, but
Great
and they had
machines.
1,000. I think they did. The Katana had a 1,016 valve on it.
Yeah. Yeah. The Prodi
That was a
Racer.
one-off. That was a one-off.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool, man. So you built the rack. What are you planning to pack?
Well, on the bike,
Yeah.
tent, blanket, well, sleep pad, sleeping bag. I
Yep.
bought a new sleeping bag, and I still think it's too big. I think it's probably I need to probably get a lighter weight one.
Yep.
So I think it'll be too heavy for winter, summer. I've got a tent already that I bought a new tent 4 years ago for the national rally, and I've never used it because we stayed in a hotel. So this will be and it's a 4-person, so it should be enough room for me, my snoring, and all my gear. So that's good. I bought a new Revit summer riding mesh outfit to ride. So I should be cool riding. I'll bring some tools, probably a quart of oil, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
And a puncture repair kit. The BSA has I don't know why I'm looking at my clothes hanging up. It's got Whitworth as well as normal AF sizes. So my spanner selection or my wrench selection is going to be a little bit awkward. So I'll just bring adjustables because everybody loves an adjustable spanner.
Yeah, that's great. That was probably the best thing, like you breaking out that huge adjustable and just like cranking on. I'm like, this is why I joined the Triumph Club, and I am not an associate of the BMW Club anymore at this point.
Yeah,
it's like that would be instant membership revoked,
instant dismissal.
Here it's with the TOMCC. That's just commonplace.
Yeah, Hey, yeah. If I can do it up with a hammer and a piece of wood, I will.
Yeah, no,
just to make it interesting.
Right. I was doing a video, and one of my buddies, he's over in Amen Moto, and he was watching it, and he saw I was using what the hell are they? The lock pliers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, channel locks.
Yeah.
And that's how I take the rear axle off on my Bonneville. He's like, "You're going to round that out." I'm like, "I'll be fine." And dude, the bike's got 100,000 miles, and I still has the same nut. So adjustable tools for the win, dude.
Sometimes, man, that's all you got to do. And if you're stuck and you need to get home, I'll sacrifice a nut so I can get home, knowing that I'll buy a new one.
Right. Everything's drillable.
Yeah, absolutely. Drill it out, snap it off. Well, or in my case, weld another nut to it.
It's clever. I gotta give you credit there too, man. You use that welder in ways that I never thought you could use a welder. It makes me think I need to get one because I just built this tool. I built this.
Honestly, that crank tool.
I welded on this nut. I'm like, look at this.
Yeah, it's the engine stand, the drill press that the camera sits on. I made that during one of our garage days. I used to have the things that I'm missing. So in the UK, I had a lathe, I had a milling machine, pillar drill, gas, and a MIG welding. So I've got now. I've got a pillar drill and a MIG welder. So I'm nearly there. I'm nearly Alan Millyard. But if I could get a lathe and be able to turn stuff up, everything would be so much better. Because that puller wouldn't be a piece of old pipe welded to this, welded to that, which was slightly off center. But it didn't matter. That's why it had the plate on the top so it would float. Well, that's the thing, How am I going to get around this? Right. So it did work, and it did a great job. It worked better than I thought it was going to, actually.
It's great to watch. Like, I'm going to use this, and I'm just happy to see how that's going to work. And it's like, wow,
it's going to make this.
I am impressed.
Yeah.
I'm going to weld this frame to this bracket with these little. When you built the rack, that was gold too.
Yeah, that was terrific. And I didn't I bought a used that grab handle's a used one, so I didn't want to ruin the original one because it's nice and it looks shiny. It looks like new. So I'm like, I'm not going to ruin that. I'll just buy one if I can find one cheap enough. And one appeared on eBay, and it's like it's bent, and I'm like, well. That'll work. And I just put it in I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's twisted. Just put it in the vise and that's perfect. $15. Thank you very much.
Right. Yep. And then you took the rack. Is that so Ken gave
you
that rack?
Yeah. Yeah, Ken gave me that. It's off the tail. It's off the tail of something he had. It bolts through a top box. Yeah. So it's got these little studs that drop down that would mount, and I've got a couple of little washers. Oh, you can't see that, but I've got a couple of little washers. I'm going to put those on the bottom, just tack them on, so when I put the bungee cords on, they won't ping off. So
that's clever too.
couple of little washers. What else have I got to do? Yeah, that's about it really. I've got to repair that silencer.
Yep.
Where it comes out, and the bike on the rear triangle, where it comes down from you got the seat, and then it comes down to the swing arm. There's two little spigots for a bicycle pump, and on the road version they're underneath the tube, and on the off-road version they're above. Well, I'm not going to be carrying a bicycle pump, and they're right where the bloody exhaust comes through, so that I'm going to cut them off.
Oh, okay.
So I'll cut those off the frame. I've got LED indicators I need to add.
Yep.
I've got a full set of Kawasaki switch controls, but I've realized they foul. I bought some fancy Domino off-road trials type levers and perches, and they foul the Kawasaki switches. So that I had them. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use them. I don't want to buy any more stuff. So I bought off Amazon 150cc Chinese scooter switchgear, because it's narrow, so it's like both sides for $20. I've got kill switch one side, an electric start, which I'll leave because that's always fun, see people press the button. So my T140 has the electric start button, and I put the key in it, turn it on. I said to my neighbour, start it, and he's like, nope, the lever by your leg. Start. No, you better do it. Okay. But and the left one, they're nice and narrow, so it should be fine. And that'll do lights, indicators. I am going to add indicators to it, or turn signals, because.
And you're doing like a whole custom wire loom.
Yeah. I'm going to wire it from scratch, because it's what I did on my T140 is I bought a new loom and then cut it to pieces, which was the dumbest thing I could have done, because they're like $100 and some odd.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to Harbour Freight and buy the wiring loom for a trailer, you get tons of wire, and you can just make it up yourself. I probably only need let's think about this. So ignition's one wire, headlights are a wire, brake light switch is a wire, indicators is a wire. Yeah. What else have we got?
Yeah, ground.
Well, yeah, it's positive ground. Yeah, so let's say, maybe let's just gamble.
Positive ground.
Positive ground. Well, it is now. If I'm rewiring it doesn't matter. So maybe I just need 8 wires, the length of the bike, and I can run everything off that. Yeah. So that'll be easy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It'd be a lot more reliable than anything that was on there.
Well, it'll be new, and there's so many plug connectors in it all the way. My T140, I think the only mechanical plug connector I've got is from the generator to the wiring loom. Everything else is soldered. Yep. All soldered in, because
Is the charging system, is that a 3-phase stator?
Single phase
stator. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it 12 volt, obviously, because of the LEDs.
Yeah. It is 12 volt, which is good. I've got the coils. The coil looks old and beaten, so I've got a Chinese scooter coil for it as well. Another eBay purchase. I know you're not supposed to go cheap on stuff like that, but it was like $15.
Yeah, well,
that'll work. I mean, the one on my T1. Yeah, well, I could do. Yeah, the one on my T140 is off a Honda, and it's a single coil with twin leads, so it's got the wasted spark, so it sparks every revolution, as opposed to every other revolution, which is the way they used to work. But it makes no difference.
The T140, that's 360, right? So they
rise and fall together. Yeah,
and they fire at the same time.
No, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah,
they
gotcha.
Alternate.
Right. So wasted spark is perfect.
Yeah, it works perfectly.
Yeah.
And the Honda coil, I just love doing stuff like that. So it's a great bike to leave at the British Bike Association type shows, because you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, it's a T1. Hang on a minute, because it's got a digital speedo with LED. It's got LED indicators. Yeah. It's got the high pipe. Yeah. It's got the Kawasaki switch. Got everything on it's wrong.
But it works.
Which is why I love it so much.
Right, because it's yours.
Yeah. Kawasaki, Nissin brake master cylinders. homemade hydraulic hoses.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the other thing I've got to do for the BSA. I've actually got to, I'm going to make my own cables for the clutch and the brake, because
the new handlebars.
Yeah, the new handlebar. I ordered the long lever, the long front brake helmet. It's just too short, and I happen to go through. I've got a blue wooden chest in my garage full of T140 parts, and in there was a brand new clutch cable kit, and I'm like, ooh, I can make that.
Yep.
So I'll do the same for that. So that'll be good. What else? I've got to clean the carb. It's the same carb as on the T140, an AML 930. So I've got a myriad of air filters that are good that I can use on it.
Yeah.
Probably go with a K&N type. I've got those they screw on.
Are they easy to dial in?
Yeah. Honestly, it's the hardest thing is the idle circuit. That's the biggest thing. But I don't think it's going to be a problem on the 250, because I haven't really gone over that much. Going up to 800cc on the Bonneville, it really, and going from filters to open bell mouths, it really did need a slightly bigger pilot jet. But that's it. And it runs, I tend to run it slightly rich anyway.
Yep. It's actually better to run it rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the BSA is going to be, the world's going to die anyway. So
I know. What's running a little rich on a motorcycle going to do?
Yeah, we can't compete with China.
Right. No.
Yeah. Yeah, or spewing lithium into the water. Yeah, it's
right. Well, we are burning liquid PVC in Ohio right now, so you know.
Oh right, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we're working on it.
There we go.
Cool, man. All right.
Cool.
So, and I've got a couple parts coming out. Part 4 will be coming out. We're going to try to do this maybe every Sunday or every other Sunday, as all depends on how fast Simon can work and how often I can break away and do work on video editing.
Yeah.
So, that's the plan. So we've got definitely 2 more parts in the pipe, and man, even looking at where we're at with part 5, we still got some more work to do, don't we? Yeah,
we do. I think part 5, I'm going to get the gearbox on. That's going to be my goal this weekend. Get the case on, put the sealant on, get it in, torque it up, and then that gives me a completed end, pretty much a complete bottom end to put into the frame.
Yep.
So then I'll attack the frame and the making sure stuff fits, and then I'll get the engine in the frame. Now I've got to make a bash plate for it as well, so there's some fabrication I've got to do.
Yep.
I don't need to, but I want to, just because all the hoses come out underneath and they're very exposed.
Yeah.
So I can do a little aluminum trim piece just to protect that. And then that's pretty much it. It'll be the wiring. I'll probably hot wire it to get it running.
Yep.
Just because I want to hear it run. Make sure that the oil is recirculating to the oil tank. What else have I got to do? I may need to modify the oil tank a little bit just to raise it up, because I think it comes really close to where the exhaust comes through the frame.
Okay.
Or make some form of guard to protect it. We'll see. Yeah, it's.
So the exhaust is going to go through the frame.
Yeah. If you look at a B44 Victor Special,
yep.
It comes out of the edge cylinder, comes around, and comes in through the frame under the oil tank, and then pops out just behind the between the wheel and the seat tube, and then there's this beautiful little peanut silencer that sits there, and it just pops the pipe out. So I just like the look of that, and I'll probably clean everything up with. I'm not a big fan of shiny chrome. Everything on my T140 has been scuffed up with Scotch-Brite pads. All the chrome. I intend to do exactly the same with anything. If I probably won't do it on the mud guards, but everything else that I touch, I probably will. Just to give it that Simonized look.
Yep. And you're going to get tires for it too, I'm guessing.
It's got brand new tires on it.
Nice.
It's got brand new Avon Road Runners. I think they literally only have 30 miles on.
Yeah, then you're going to run them. That's
I'm going to use them. I may. It depends how we go closer to the event. I may try and put trials tires on it because we are going to be riding gravel roads as part of the reliability trial.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, but, I mean, I take my T120 with street tires down dirt roads.
Yeah, I've done it before. It's not a big deal. I'm not stressing it. If I don't,
as long as we're not going down like trails.
No, we're not. I don't think we're going down trails. And if that's why I want to pre-ride the route on the Tiger as well, because if I can do it on the Tiger, because it's big, I should be able to do it on the BSA.
Yeah, I mean, you've only driven up dry waterfalls in the Tiger and stuff. So
yeah, that's right. A dry waterfall full of baby heads, I think, is the ADV term. Yeah. And I stopped halfway up a dry waterfall to find there was no one behind me and I couldn't put my feet down properly. So turning the bloody thing around was a nightmare.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Casey, for running up the hill to find me. I honestly thought we were going to lay it down and leave it there. I thought we were walking out that day. It was a rough day.
That's so funny.
Good times.
Cool, man. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap this one up. Make sure you tune in every Sunday-ish. Not every Sunday, but on Sundays we'll be releasing
Sunday.
Huh?
Some Sunday.
Some Sundays.
Some Sunday.
We'll be releasing the BSA Starfire 250 rebuild process and progress, brought to you by Simon. And any shameless plugs before we go?
Just if you're a motorcycle enthusiast and you like Triumphs, please join the Triumph Owners Club, especially the New England branch, because we are quite simply the best.
We really are.
We really are. We do the most. We have the most fun. We're unashamedly all about having fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously either. There's no crazy initiation process. We just want you to, if you enjoy riding bikes and talking bikes, then come and join us.
Yeah. And information for that will be located in the description below. All right, folks.
Excellent.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Have a good one. Cheers, Justin.